If you were around in the early 2000s, then you know about Ben 10, one of the most iconic and popular cartoons of the time. It's still to this day one of the best examples of marketing I've ever seen. Not only did it have 5 different iterations, but it also spawned various action figures, video games, trading cards, wearable merchandise, and 2 live-action movies. Ben 10 Race Against Time and Ben 10 Alien Swarm. And neither of these were good. I saw these when they premiered in 2007 and 2009 respectively. As a huge Ben 10 fan at the time, I ate these up. I love Race Against Time so much that I took it with me to school. Sorry, I just unlocked a repressed childhood memory. So today I'll be looking back at these 2 movies to see if they hold up. After all, they don't. I'm not even gonna say that generic YouTube shit, you know they don't. We're starting off with Ben 10 Race Against Time because, well, it's the first one. The film opens up on a quiet night in the town of Bellwood. Then all of a sudden, a mysterious figure materializes and proceeds to spin the block, causing $1,200 of property damage. Here we get an introduction to one of the first aliens in the movie, Heat Blast. Yep, that's definitely some 2007 television CGI. He looks fine for the most part, and the scene being set at nighttime helps sell the effect a bit more. Kinda. After some pre-fight banter, where Ben's shown some of the worst action choreography I've ever seen. Why is there a cut focused on Heat Blast's torso? They're playing this really awesome rendition of the Ben 10 theme, but over it we just see Heat Blast doing some of the most underwhelming actions. I've seen Twitter fight videos with better choreography than this. It's like, damn, if I took a shot for every cut, then I'd be passed out on my desk right now. After the camera operator defeats the minions, Heat Blast proceeds to pack up the mysterious figure, just in time before the Omnitrix turns him back to normal. Here we see Ben Tennyson, played by Graham Phillips. He's an actor that's done a fair amount of Broadway work. He was in the musical 13, which also starred Ariana Grande and my fiancée Elizabeth Gillies. Currently, you can hear him as Harry Osborn in Marvel Spider-Man 2, aka the reason why my uploads will be scarce in October.
We smoking symbiotes.
In this scene, we're also introduced to Gwen, played by Haley Ram, and Grandpa Max, played by Lee Majors. The casting department did a great job with these 3. Just hearing them talk to each other really shows how well they got their respective characterizations down. It's a school night, so Ben needs to head home, and man, this next part is the greatest thing about this movie. If you know, you know. If not, then prepare to witness peak fiction.
Joke's on you, bitch.
I'm not getting a copyright claim for y'all. You're not even subscribed. After that amazing intro, we see a typical school day for Ben, which includes having no game, being a horrible student, no athletic ability, and being bullied by the kid from G-Force. Ben then gets attention by accidentally hitting his principal with the gum wad that they put in his locker.
You didn't just...
Tennis.
Man.
Ben goes home and tells his parents about the kind of day he's been having.
Could have blinded Principal White.
Mom, Dad, it was just gum.
Okay, Ben, it's Sandra and Carl. Okay, we're all equals in this house.
Stuff like that would never happen in a black household. After his parents tell him a bunch of nothing, Ben goes to confide in Grandpa Max, who reiterates that going back to a life of normalcy is exactly what Ben needs right now, and he should keep trying to make things work at school.
You think they'll like you better if they know you're a hero?
Well, yeah.
Well, you might be right.
The scene transitions over to the clock tower shown earlier in the movie, where the mysterious I'm just gonna call him Eon at this point, where Eon is monologuing to his minions. He's played by a man named Christian Enholt. It's funny because who decided to cast this Shakespearean actor in this goofy-ass movie? Like, he's acting as if rent is due.
Let him die. You are here to serve me.
In summary, Eon's whole plan is to open up a gateway to his dimension in order for him and his peeps to colonize Earth, because that's something that every bad guy wants. He says he can achieve that once Ben Tennyson is dead. I always found it funny how this interdimensional alien's biggest op is a 10-year-old child from Glenwood, Georgia. It's fucking hilarious. He's like Cat Williams if he was 2 feet taller and won fights. After that, we see Ben having another horrible day.
Lameson, that was so good.
Hey, it's the little magician's assistant. Thinking up some fresh new tricks?
Shut up, bitch!
So he decides enough is enough and it's time to get revenge. He accidentally transforms into Grey Matter, who honestly looks kinda good, even now. I need to know what his original plan was. Was he just going to walk in there as forearms and start knocking people's heads off? Whatever. Grey Matter starts messing around with some of the appliances in the restaurant and chaos ensues. He airs out the entire restaurant, food and shit is just thrown everywhere and it gets on everybody. In the very next scene, Gwen is looking over pictures that she took earlier at school. In the background of one of the pictures she took, she notices Eon is photobombing for whatever reason. He's just posted up back there. She enhances the image by hacking into the mainframe of her HP 2007 laptop. And here comes Grandpa Max with more exposition.
His name is Eon of Kronia. Eon was the beginning. He was the first alien captured, half dead, carrying with him a device called the Hands of Armageddon. The archival material, signaling the start of an alien invasion that would mark the end of humankind.
So according to Grandpa Max, Eon was one of the first aliens captured by the original plumbers. When they discovered him, he had a device called the Hands of Armageddon with him. And as I've explained earlier, by using the Hands of Armageddon, Eon can make somewhat of a gateway to his race in order for them to colonize Earth. But alas, that didn't happen. Grandpa Max decides to take the kids to a plumber's facility that's housing Eon, and it's in shambles. There's only a single survivor, and quotations around survivor. Hey, no joke, I have a manager that looks exactly like this. So this talking backwood here is a man named Constantine Jacobs. He's a plumber that was in charge of guarding Eon. Pretty safe to say it didn't work out too well. He explains that it's important for them to not let Eon find the hardware store. The hardware store is the place where the Hands of Armageddon is located, and it's also a plumber space. And just right before he dies, Constantine here tells Ben that Eon knows about him and the Omnitrix. So that'll come into question later. Now they make it towards the hardware store where we see a bunch of familiar faces. All the plumbers here are adults that Ben and Gwen know in their personal lives, and it's a neat touch. It's here where we finally get our first look at the Hands of Armageddon, and hopefully nothing goes bad here. Something goes bad. It turns out Ben, Gwen, and Max were followed by one of Eon's minions, who led them right to the base. Once again, we're in for another well-directed action scene, and we also get a look at some of the plumber's weaponry, which includes plastic guns and pipes and a tire iron, so you know they mean business. Their technology is on par with the fucking kids next door. Eon pops up once again and he attempts to activate the Hands of Armageddon, but it doesn't work because he's a mask. He spots Ben from across the room and decides to grab him and drag him outside. Yeah, he should be on a registry somewhere. Anytime that Eon's around Ben, he causes the Omnitrix to bug out, and it leads to a chase scene where Eon is trying to run over Ben with some cars, even though I was under the impression that he needs Ben, so why would he try to kill him? Whatever. Eon corners Ben in an alley and starts explaining how he's a pro esports Smash player and he wants to recruit Ben for his team. No, but seriously, he talks about how he wants to groom Ben.
What is about to happen here is inevitable.
What do you mean by that?
And how the Omnitrix is the key to open up the Hands of Armageddon. Out of nowhere, Eon gets shot up from the Asian men from the restaurant Ben was at earlier, and Eon ends up running away. Like, we've only ever seen this guy lose on screen, so he's not really that much of a threat at this point. Anyways, Ben ends up returning home, and his parents are kind of worried because he's a 10-year-old kid out at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning.
I want you to feel free to have a dialogue with us, Ben.
Mom,
Sandra.
In his room, we see that Grandpa Max was waiting for Ben, and they have honestly kind of a touching scene. Grandpa Max explains to Ben that he's going to have a plumber watching him at all times as a safety precaution, even though I'm not really sure how viable that is because, I mean, he was at a plumber's base and Eon grabbed him kind of easily, so maybe having them around won't really make that much of a difference. It's especially weird because they're okay with Ben going back to school, even though this is a place that Eon knows and has been to before. And who would have guessed? Eon pops up again and is doing a bad job in dodging those allegations.
With all those plumbers around, I was beginning to think we would never have a moment alone.
Okay, boys and girls, let's see the alien that they don't have a budget for this time. And it's Diamond Head, who I remember looking a lot better when I was a kid. Another fight scene happens, and quotations around fight because, like, only 2 things happen here. Because Ben pulled the fire alarm earlier in the scene, all the kids rush towards the gymnasium, so Eon bounces and Ben hides.
Great. Just where I wanted to spend 5th period.
After being frustrated with the constant Eon encounters, Ben decides enough is enough and finally decides to take his stand, so he wants to fight him alone, because he thinks that's a smarter plan, I guess. So Ben and Gwen decide to set a trap for Eon at the park, but it doesn't work because Eon somewhat has common sense. We see Grandpa Max pop up and tells them that they're doing some stupid shit. Then all of a sudden the rust bucket just bursts into flames and we see the remainder of their budget go with it. Eon captures the trio and takes them back towards the hardware store where the Hands of Armageddon is. Once they arrive at the place, Eon finally reveals the rest of his plan about how he's been waiting for Ben for centuries and centuries looking for him because of the Omnitrix. You see, all throughout this time, Eon's body has been growing weaker, so he can't activate the Hands of Armageddon because he's not strong enough at this point. So his plan is to activate his alien DNA within the Omnitrix to basically transform Ben into a version of himself, a version that's stronger and more powerful and that's capable of actually using the Hands of Armageddon. If that sounds like nonsense, that's because it is. Apparently it's something that Grandpa Max and the plumbers have known for a while, but they just never told Ben because blah blah blah, it's too dangerous, they didn't want him to know, yada yada, all that movie shit. Eon succeeds in transforming Ben into a version of himself, and he decides to disappear because two versions can't exist in one world according to him. I actually really like this part of the movie because of just how hammy Anholt's acting is here. It's like I said earlier, he's going so hard for this role and I just love it.
Trapped. Held slave by a child. No longer. I am free!
Grandpa Max and Gwen end up escaping the chains with the wrench that Grandpa Max was using earlier in the movie. After he gets free, Grandpa Max electrocutes Ben and tries to shut down the Hands of Armageddon himself, and it's working, I guess. After that, we cut to a scene that shows that the plumbers have been locked away because there's some trash, and Ed comes up and unlocks the door for them. Okay, now that they're free, maybe they can actually do something in the movie. Oh, well, so much for that. At this point, Gwen is trying so hard to reason with Ben, and it ends up working, so he regains a sense of self and transforms back into Ben. He and the plumbers end up pulling Grandpa Max away from the Hands of Armageddon because his old ass was going to sacrifice himself to turn it off, even though he doesn't have to do that. And with the machine finally shutting down, everything seems to be going okay. Until Eon pops back up, mad as hell. He grabs Ben by the shirt and like tosses him like 20 feet into the opposite direction, and then Ben transforms into Wildmutt, and oh my fucking god, what is that? Ew! No, I gotta cut this shit off. Like, what the fuck are they doing? His audio for the scream doesn't even match the fucking mouth movement. It looks so fucking nasty. It's like the fur textures aren't working here because, again, like they had $12 for the CGI budget. Our final battle happens and it's like the worst scene I've ever watched in a movie. Instead of Wildmutt just mauling Eon and calling it a day, he picks up Gwen's frozen body and hits Eon with it like a bat and knocks Eon over to the Hands of Armageddon, which blows up everything and kills Eon in the process, I assume. Okay, like that was a lot to process. So after that, Ben and Gwen make it to their talent show because that's a plot line that the movie was trying to do that I didn't really mention. And Wildmutt is there too because Ben has to be at the talent show. His Omnitrix is about to time out, so Gwen has the idea of dropping the curtain on him to make it seem as though they're making Wildmutt disappear and Ben reappear under the curtain, so that way it kind of protects his identity. I don't know, guys. I'm tired. I don't know what to say about this fucking movie anymore. After that sequence, Ben and Gwen finally get some clout from their school peers, and Ben, Gwen, and Max walk to who knows where with their tiny-ass trophy, and then all seems to be right with the world. As the camera pans up to the moon, they try to have a fake-ass teaser for a sequel, which they technically don't get, because I'm pretty sure Alien Swarm is loosely connected to the events here. But yeah, that was Ben 10 Race Against Time. It's like I said before, it's a movie that I grew up with, and I do have a lot of nostalgia for, but it doesn't make it good. It suffers from a lot of very weird pacing issues. The action scenes just aren't good. Acting-wise, there are some okay performances here. I think Graham Phillips is alright as Ben sometimes, and in other scenes he has just weird deliveries. If you're a fan of Ben 10 and everything in the series, then you've most definitely already seen this movie or probably grew up with it like I did. If you guys want to see me suffer and cover part 2, which would be Alien Swarm, then let's try to get this video to 20 likes. That's the only way I'm going to sit through another one of these willingly. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.